Okay.
Alright. Hello, my name is Zach, and for the majority of my life, I struggled with drugs and alcohol. My life consisted of one mistake after another, and the shame from those mistakes haunted me every day. Covering up that pain was the only way I knew how to cope until I learned the art of self forgiveness. Today, I'm going to walk you through my way out of the pain and ultimately out of active addiction. Self forgiveness is a tool we can use when self condemnation from our mistakes stays with us. According to Ji-Chun Kim and Robert Enright, psychologists specializing in forgiveness, self forgiveness is practiced when our sense of justice is violated and we become resentful towards ourselves. Kim Enright, nope. Everybody makes mistakes, and we all know that. The mistakes I would like to focus on leave a lasting negative effect. They look different in everybody's lives, but maybe it isn't addiction, maybe it's abortion, maybe like you killed somebody, maybe you stabbed somebody, or maybe you just ate too much last night. Self forgiveness is a constructive way out of those negative feelings associated with our mistakes. Psychologist Zenon Zablosky says that forgiving yourself is a decision to remove self blame, guilt, and shame. While self forgiveness may be a complicated task at times, it always starts with a decision. The process isn't easy due to the fact that you have to own up to it, admit your wrongs in order to properly move on from the mistake. Standing back up is hard to do when we have fallen, but it is the first step to the process of self forgiveness. Mistakes often produce guilt and shame, but these emotions are not the same. John Bradshaw, a best-selling author and psychologist, says that guilt refers to our behavior as wrong, but shame refers to our being as wrong. Guilt is related to our actions, so it can be overcome with a change in behavior. And guilt actually is shown to be one of the greatest motivators in changing your behavior. But shame is humiliation to the core of your being. It is what traps us and makes us want to hide. When not dealt with, shame is an insidious disease that is very difficult to live with. I hid this pain very well by repressing my pain from specific situations, but it led to more problems. Psychologist Saul McLeod outlines the danger of repression by stating that forcing disturbing wishes, ideas, or memories into the unconscious, where although hidden, they will create anxiety. Repression doesn't get rid of our problems. Our problems create more problems when we choose not to deal with them. I did this because I didn't think that anybody could relate to my wrongs that I've done or the pain that I felt. I held on to shame, and it piled up to the point where it was all that I saw in myself. John Bradshaw states, when internalized, an emotion stops functioning as an emotion and becomes an identity. This process was slow, but eventually my being was covered in humiliation to the point that it was all I saw in myself. I wasn't just hiding my mistakes, I was hiding the real me. I wore my shame every day of my life, and it caused me to stay stuck in the use of drugs and alcohol just to feel a sense of worth. I was left with the decision to forgive myself and move on, or to stay stuck in a spiral leading towards death. Self forgiveness is the trip through our mistake and the feelings it caused to a healthier belief about ourselves. Psychology Timothy A. Pickle outlines a forgiveness process in 3 simple steps. First, we must acknowledge the wrong. Facing the mistake is a humbling acceptance of our fault. It is saying that I did it. And the second step is to experience the feelings. We must ride these things out instead of repressing them. And the last step is to overcome these feelings. Overcoming these feelings isn't an easy task, but it is as simple as self-acceptance. When we acknowledge our wrong, the feelings of guilt and the shame comes to the surface where we can properly deal with it. Overcoming shame is a difficult task due to the lack of self-love that we have. Matthew B. James, a psychologist specializing in forgiveness, states, a lot of us don't have a loving, trusting relationship with ourselves. Many of us are much more critical of ourselves than we are of others. Loving yourself is the key to overcoming feelings of shame. Once you have felt them, accepting that you are prone to mistakes allows self-love to occur. Self-love means that we choose not to beat ourselves up anymore, but we choose to use our mistakes as stepping stones to change. We choose to love ourselves despite our shortcomings. Self-forgiveness, when used improperly, can result in narcissistic beliefs about oneself due to the lack of emotional reproof experienced when we make a mistake. Juliana Breens, a postdoctoral at Brandeis University, says that self-forgiveness may at times serve as a crutch, producing a comforting sense of moral self-righteousness rather than a motivating sense of moral responsibility. Minimizing the effects of our mistakes, rather than owning up to them, causes us to believe that what we did isn't that bad. When we believe that what we did isn't bad, when in fact it is, we run the risk of hurting ourselves and others without feeling that we did anything wrong. But self-forgiveness is a tool that allows us to interact with others in a healthy manner. AllAboutGod.com tells us that putting off self-forgiveness keeps the thoughts that your pain is justified around, and that causes anger, which can be focused at harming others. Hurt people, and self-forgiveness is not just for the self. The root of our problem here is that we hurt ourselves or others to the point that it produces guilt and shame. Making the connection that your negative emotions cause negative behavior is paramount because it can alleviate further harm to others and yourself. Self-forgiveness is a journey of moving on from our mistakes, which allows us to move on to healthier behavior. This is not easy, but it is worth it. Forgiving myself, removing the guilt and shame from my addiction, and moving on from my past allows me to reach goals that I never thought I could. If you have feelings of regret, guilt, or shame, and you don't know how to move on, I'm here to tell you that you have never gone too far down the wrong path to turn around. Forgiving myself was the boost I needed, and it may be for you too. Bam.